Hello, and welcome to this Anatomy Physiology Bio 202 video lecture on fluids, electrolytes, and acid-base balance. I'm Mr. Kennedy, and I'll be your guide as we explore this topic together. To begin with, we'll examine the fluid compartments and fluid homeostasis. In adults, body fluids make up between 55 and 65% of our total body mass. Our body fluids are present in two main compartments, inside of our cells and outside of our cells. Inside of our cells contains 2/3 of our body fluids, and the remaining third is outside. The cytosol is made up of our intracellular fluids, while the interstitial fluid and blood plasma constitute our extracellular fluid. Interstitial fluid accounts for 80% of our extracellular fluid, and blood plasma 20%. This graphic illustrates our individual fluid compartments and their relative volumes. The plasma membrane of cells separates intracellular fluid from interstitial fluid. Blood vessel walls will divide the interstitial fluid from your blood plasma, and capillary walls, which are thin, allow the exchange of water and solutes between the blood plasma and interstitial fluid. This graphic illustrates the exchange of water among body fluid compartments. Filtration, reabsorption, diffusion, and osmosis allow continuous exchange of water and solutes among body fluid compartments. The balance of inorganic compounds that dissociate into ions, also known as electrolytes, is closely related to fluid balance. The body gains water by ingestion and metabolic synthesis. The body loses water via urination, perspiration, exhalation, and through defecation. This graphic illustrates the ways in which we both gain and lose water in their respective volumes. The level of aerobic respiration determines the volume of metabolic water formed. The amount of water formed is directly proportional to the amount of ATP produced. When water loss is greater than water gain, dehydration occurs, leading to increased thirst. This flowchart illustrates the events that follow dehydration and leading up to increased water intake. The elimination of excess body water occurs through urine production. The amount of urinary salt loss is the main factor determining body fluid volume. The two main solutes in urine are sodium ions and chloride ions. Wherever the solutes go, water follows. This flowchart illustrates the events that follow an increased intake of salt or sodium chloride, leading up to a decrease in blood volume. There are three major hormones that control renal sodium and chlorine. They are angiotensin II, aldosterone, and atrial natriuretic peptide, or ANP. The major hormone that regulates water loss is antidiuretic hormone, or ADH. This table will provide you with a summary of factors that maintain body water balance. Listed is each factor, the mechanism, and its overall effect. Water intoxication occurs when excess body water causes cells to swell dangerously. This may occur when a person consumes water faster than the kidneys can excrete it. This flowchart illustrates the events that follow excessive blood loss, sweating, vomiting, or diarrhea coupled with the intake of plain water, leading up to convulsions, coma, and possible death. Electrolytes in our body fluids. Ions formed when electrolytes dissociate and dissolve. These electrolytes control osmosis of water between fluid compartments. They may help maintain the acid-base balance, carry electrical current, or serve as cofactors. The concentration of ions is expressed in units of milliequivalents per liter. Blood plasma, interstitial fluid, and intracellular fluid have different concentrations of electrolytes and protein ions. Blood plasma contains many protein ions, and interstitial fluid contains only a few. This graphic illustrates the relative proportion of electrolytes in our blood plasma, interstitial fluid, and intracellular fluid. Sodium is the most abundant cation in our extracellular fluid. It's used for impulse transmission, muscle contraction, fluid, and electrolyte balance. Its level is controlled by aldosterone, ADH, and ANP. Chloride is the major extracellular anion. It helps regulate osmotic pressure between compartments. It forms hydrochloric acid, or HCl, in the stomach. Regulation of chloride balance is controlled by aldosterone. Potassium is the most abundant cation in the intracellular fluid. It's involved in fluid volume, impulse conduction, muscle contraction, and the regulation of pH. Mineralocorticoids, mainly aldosterone, regulate the plasma level. Bicarbonate is an important plasma ion. It's a major member of the plasma acid-base buffering system. Kidneys reabsorb or secrete it for a final acid-base balance. Calcium is the most abundant mineral in the body. It's a structural component of bones and teeth. It's used for blood coagulation, as a neurotransmitter releasing agent, muscle tone, excitability of nerves and muscles. The level in plasma is regulated by parathyroid hormone. Phosphate. Phosphate occurs as calcium phosphate salt. It's used in the buffering system, and it's regulated by parathyroid hormone and calcitriol. Magnesium is an intracellular cation. It activates enzymes involved in carbohydrate and protein metabolism. It's used in myocardial function, transmission in the central nervous system, and the operation of the sodium pump. This table will provide you with a summary of your blood electrolyte imbalances. Listed are the electrolytes, the name and causes, signs and symptoms of the deficiency, and the names and causes, signs and symptoms of the electrolyte in excess. Acid-base balance. The pH of arterial blood ranges from 7.35 to 7.45. Several mechanisms maintain this range: buffer systems, exhalation of carbon dioxide, and kidney excretion of hydrogen ion. Buffer systems. Buffer systems include the protein buffer system. The protein buffer system is the most abundant in intracellular fluid and blood plasma. When pH rises, the carboxyl or COOH group dissociates to act like an acid, as seen illustrated here. When pH falls, the free amino group dissociates to act like a base, as illustrated here. Hemoglobin in red blood cells acts as a buffer as well, as seen here. Carbonic acid bicarbonate buffer system. The carbonic acid bicarbonate buffer system gives us the ability to again maintain pH through the formation of a weak base or a weak acid to compensate for changes in pH levels. If the pH falls, the bicarbonate or HCO3 can remove excess hydrogen ion as illustrated here. If the pH rises, the carbonic acid, or H2CO3, can provide hydrogen ions. The phosphate buffering system. The phosphate buffering system acts similarly to the carbonic acid-bicarbonate buffering system. Here, dihydrogen phosphate and monohydrogen phosphate are the ions used. Dihydrogen phosphate acts as a weak acid, and monohydrogen phosphate acts as a weak base, as illustrated here. Exhalation of carbon dioxide. CO2 mixes with water in the blood to form carbonic acid, H2CO3. Exhaling CO2 leads to less acid production and a subsequent rise in pH. Retaining CO2 leads to more acid production and a subsequent drop in pH, as illustrated here. This feedback mechanism illustrates the process involved in maintaining our acid-base balance through breathing. Kidney excretion of hydrogen ion. Excreting hydrogen ions in the urine removes non-volatile acids. The proximal convoluted tubules and collecting ducts of the kidneys secrete hydrogen ion into the tubular fluid. This is illustrated here. Some hydrogen secreted into the tubular fluid of the collecting duct is buffered by HPO4 and NH3. The buffers are excreted in the urine, as illustrated here. This table will provide you with a summary of the mechanisms that maintain pH in your body fluids. The mechanisms are listed at the left, and the commentary describing their function on the right. Acid-base balance may also incur some imbalances. Acid-base imbalances may occur as the pH swings outside of the normal range. Acidosis occurs when the blood pH is below 7.35. Alkalosis occurs when the blood pH is above 7.45. Respiratory acidosis is a condition brought on by blood pH dropping due to the excessive retention of carbon dioxide, leading to an excess of carbonic acid. Respiratory alkalosis is a condition brought on by the blood pH rising due to excessive loss of CO2, as in hyperventilation. Metabolic acidosis is a condition brought on by arterial blood levels of HCO3 falling, and metabolic alkalosis is brought on by arterial blood levels of HCO3 rising. This table will provide you with a summary of acidosis and alkalosis. The condition, definition, causes, and compensatory mechanisms are summarized for you here. And that brings to a close our coverage of acid-base balances, fluids, and electrolytes.